people who say they're fans, people who say they are diehard fans of Star Wars. They are devoted to Star Wars. They love Star Wars. I am seeing more and more a very precarious pattern, and this is what it is. I am seeing, we're talking about legacy here, I am seeing this need to drum up theories on characters like Ahsoka Tano and where she fits in two places: in her meeting with Luke Skywalker after the Return of the Jedi, and even, I've seen this now, even trying to drum up theories on where she was in the original trilogy. Now, I'll just state the obvious. She didn't exist at all. She was never written at all in the original trilogy. Now, people are like, well, yeah, that's obvious. Why do you have to bring that up? Well, I want to say it's important to bring this up because people are really, really trying to rehash and reorganize and deconstruct and reconstruct and revisit and uproot and reconnect all stories and plots to support and bolster a theory on, like, well, how can we make Ahsoka Tano's absence plausible? How can we make the original trilogy make sense with Ahsoka Tano's absence? And to that I say at first, is that even necessary? Why try to drum up all these theories and say, well, this happened in this event, and therefore she's not here with the original trilogy. She was not in the original trilogy. She doesn't need to be in any way a part of the original trilogy, even in her absence. Even in her absence. She served her purpose in the Clone Wars. She served her purpose in Rebels. She does not, even in her absence, even at the mention of her name, does not need to be a part of the original trilogy. Now, why is that important? Well, it kind of leads to the next thing, what people are talking about. More than 3 channels I've seen already now where they're theorizing this idea. Well, maybe Ahsoka Tano teaches Luke Skywalker the ways of the Force after the death of Obi-Wan, after the death of Yoda, after the reconciling of his father, Anakin Skywalker. Well, maybe she's still a living Jedi. And so therefore, because she's older and more experienced, words of Dave Filoni, because she's older and more experienced and more knowledgeable of the Force, she can teach Luke Skywalker. Why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? Creatively speaking, narratively speaking, why is this a problem in Star Wars? The first is a practical reason. Luke Skywalker has Ghost Force Yoda, Ghost Force Obi-Wan, and even Anakin. It's kind of, now that we have the lore, it is kind of problematic that Anakin Skywalker is even a Force ghost. Whatever, he's powerful, he's the chosen one. That could be aside. I don't really have anything to say about that. I don't find anything wrong with that. But he's got, from the Return of the Jedi, he's got 3 mentors, spiritual mentors that can show him the way. Therefore, he doesn't need a living Jedi to teach him the way. That's the practical answer of that. So in that way, Ahsoka is not needed. She doesn't need to teach Luke Skywalker the ways of the Force in order to establish this new Jedi Order. Now, I want to talk about a more spiritual, moral reason why she shouldn't teach Luke Skywalker the ways of the Force so he can establish this new Jedi Order, which would be, if that's the case, it would be their Jedi Order. This would be Ahsoka's Jedi Order. The moral conundrum of this is that, narratively speaking, in the story, it was Luke Skywalker, in extending his mercy and love to his father, he redeemed his father and destroyed the evil of Emperor Palpatine in one sitting. By his sacrifice and his devotion and his love for his father, to redeem his father, to draw Anakin back to the light. In effect, George Lucas would probably call it karma, but in effect, that instigated that final action of Anakin Skywalker to destroy the Sith. It was Luke Skywalker who caused that. It was Luke Skywalker. It was Anakin who killed the Emperor Palpatine. But it was Luke Skywalker and his love for his father who started it all. It was the initial action that caused a good reaction in Anakin Skywalker to destroy the Sith. So effectively, Luke Skywalker, against the advice of Obi-Wan, a good man, a good person, against the advice of Obi-Wan, against the advice of Yoda, well, Yoda with his going to Cloud Bespin, the Cloud City of Bespin, to save his friends. That was his good nature. He's like, I have to help my friends, even at the cost of all of this. Because Yoda and Obi-Wan were still in that, we have to promote the universal good even at the expense of our friends. They were still kind of stuck in that old Jedi way that could have been one of those pebbles to start that avalanche, that caused their fall. But Luke, by his own instinct and yeah, he's impulsive. That's a flaw that he has to overcome. But his love to help his friends and then ultimately help his father, that's him only. That is his nature only. This is the thing that distinguishes him. This distinguishes him from Leia, even a very good protagonist and a hero, a very good woman. But what does she say? She's like, well, if he can feel your presence, then leave here. I'll stay and fight the soldiers, the stormtroopers. I'll fight with the rebellion, but you leave. And Luke says, no, I have to go to my father. I have to go to our father. I have to have that one chance at bringing him back, even if it means my death. So in that, he's not only redeemed someone back into the light, it also simultaneously destroyed the most evil that universe, as far as we know, has ever faced. Because of that, only Luke Skywalker has the right to establish the new Jedi Order. He doesn't really need teaching. In fact, in the Thrawn trilogy, after 5 years of some spiritual mentorship from Obi-Wan says, listen, you're ready to start this new order, but you have to figure it out. Now, people might say, wait a second, Michelle, are you saying it had to be like the Thrawn trilogy? Are you saying it had to be what Timothy Zahn said, verbatim, plot, event for event and all that? No, but what I will say about the Thrawn trilogy, I didn't like everything about the Thrawn trilogy. I'm not a super fan of the Thrawn trilogy. I actually don't really care for the character Thrawn himself. I know it's an anomaly. I accept that. But what I do really, really, really love about the Thrawn trilogy is it got Luke Skywalker right to the letter. It got the spirit of Luke Skywalker right to the letter. Yeah, he had his doubts. He's like, I don't know how to figure this out. But what did he do? What eventually caused him to be able to set up the new Jedi Order? His interactions with Sabayoth and Mara Jade. Those two interactions with those two characters, and multiple interactions with those two characters, that's what triggered him to find out, oh, I'm still figuring this out, but I can do this. And it's not until the end of the book 3 of the trilogy, where Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker together with her redemption defeat Sabaoth. Sorry, spoiler alert. forgot to say that. But it was through those encounters where he found himself. He was very much misguided by the Dark Jedi, as it was called back then in the EU world. I know that's a problematic term now. I'm not sure why, but he was misled by Sabaoth. Sabaoth had kind of a strange air about him where he was definitely crazy and definitely power hungry. But there were misgivings. Yes, Luke had his misgivings about the man, but he still wanted to not work with Sabaoth. He wanted to appease him. He wanted to reach out to Sabaoth as coming back to the light as he wanted his father to. Now, he doesn't succeed with Sabaoth. Sabaoth remains estranged and uber powerful in the Force and wants to destroy things. He wants to destroy things he can't control, but he really actually just wants to control the minds of everyone through the Force. But he does redeem Mara Jade. He pulls her out of this nightmarish relationship that she had with Emperor Palpatine, where it was a very insidious kind of twisted father-daughter relationship that she couldn't get out of until the coming and rescuing of Luke Skywalker. And when he redeemed her at the end, that's when he was ready to set up the order. So this is why Ahsoka doesn't need to teach Luke. Now one could argue saying, well, Michelle, they're not going to do word for word an adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy. It's not going to go as the plot is. Actually, I'd like to say this. I don't need a Thrawn trilogy adaptation. Even if it was very good, wholesome climate in Hollywood, I still would not need an adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy. What I'm saying is that trilogy got Luke Skywalker and his trajectory to become the first Jedi Master of this new order. That's what's important. So even if they did a completely different story, even if I read a completely different story with different villains, with different encounters, with different adventures, with even a different dynamic between Han and Leia, for instance, if they kept that spirit of Luke Skywalker intact, I would have been fine. It wasn't the book itself. It wasn't the story itself that I admired. It was preserving the spirit of Luke Skywalker and the heart of Luke Skywalker and keeping that trajectory all the way through. It was a very reasonable, pragmatic, believable trajectory from him not knowing what to do at the very beginning of the first book when Obi-Wan says, I'm departing. We may meet again, but maybe not on this side of the Force. I am departing. It is up to you. You have it. He said that it was like a blessing. It was a spiritual blessing of a saint or something. It's like, you have it. You have it. You might not see it now, but you have what you need. And he did. Through his trials and his misgivings and his mistakes, there were mistakes that he made, especially concerning Sabaoth. And a little bit, he got into a little bit of trouble with Mara Jade too, because he still had that good heart to want to redeem everyone. So even if he got into skirmishes by his own misgivings and misleadings and all of that, or mistakes, I should say, that's fine. That's just a good plot for a sequel to what we had from the original trilogy. That's all well and good. And if it was a completely different story with different characters, but with the same trajectory, with the same spirit, I would have been fine with that too. It was the spirit of Luke Skywalker. It was the heart of Luke Skywalker, what those books preserved, that made it believable for him to set up the established new order, or for him to establish the new order. Why Ahsoka Tano is really problematic, and where people are theorizing this idea of her teaching him because she's more experienced, she's older and more experienced, and therefore more knowledgeable of the Force, if not more powerful. Why this is such a problem is this real tragedy that Ahsoka Tano is not necessary. Rather than have her own compelling story as a Force user somewhere in the Star Wars universe, they had to make her so inherently linked to Anakin Skywalker. I mean, it's even touched upon in Rebels. I didn't see the show, but I've seen scenes with her where she struggles, where she feels guilt that Anakin turned to the dark side because she left him. That is not true. He turned to the dark side simply because he thought he could protect his wife from death. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. Maybe a feeling of betrayal by Obi-Wan Kenobi. But even Padme came first before Kenobi in the way of his going down to the dark side, falling to the dark side. Ahsoka has no business feeling guilty that she caused this monster of her old master. And that, with her being pulled into the timeline, world between worlds thing, and keeping her alive, that's what's causing her to be an actual conundrum in the heart and story and universe of Star Wars, rather than her having a very compelling arc that is separate, away from Anakin Skywalker, and even away from Luke Skywalker. She should have had her closure at the end of season 5 and done her own thing and be a good character, be a good Force user, be her own protagonist in her own way. But now they made it so like as if she's like a daughter, you know? The Star Wars channels and Dave Filoni, they're active. Whether these Star Wars channels whether they know it or not, they are being so active in trying to make Ahsoka Tano as important as Padme and as important as Luke Skywalker. By making her as important as Padme or Luke Skywalker, you're having a hard time fitting her in the narrative in a comprehensible, believable way. That's the problem. The tragedy of Ahsoka Tano is she's become unnecessary in the story because she's not necessary to train Luke Skywalker. No matter what stories of Luke Skywalker happens, no matter what adventures he has, whether it's the Thrawn trilogy or something totally different, even if they adapted a Luke Skywalker series after the Return of the Jedi that had nothing to do with Thrawn or all the things that happen in the Thrawn trilogy, he could still on his own be qualified. He's the only one qualified to establish this new Jedi Order. As I said before, why? Because practically he's got Force Ghost, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. Maybe Anakin too, after his redemption. But morally speaking, he earned that right by redeeming someone and effectively destroying evil at the same time. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Is first of all this tragedy of Ahsoka Tano, who people are not knowing this, and this is what's grieving me. And this is probably one of the, unless something comes up or I feel compelled to talk about Star Wars, this will probably be one of the last times I talk about anything related to Disney Star Wars, because it grieves me that people think she's this most amazing character, and Filoni himself, the man who created this character, has rendered her effectively unnecessary in the narrative because he had to make her so important to Anakin Skywalker. When Anakin already had important people, he had Padme, he had Obi-Wan, and ultimately he had Luke Skywalker, his son. He actually didn't need Ahsoka Tano, apart from her being a Padawan that he loses later, which is good. It's good he would have that in his past, but she's not necessary in terms of his future importance, in the way she's not necessary in terms of Luke Skywalker's future importance. Again, it's tragic. Rather than being compelling, she's actually an inconvenience because she's not necessary. They have made her, the writers have made her unnecessary, and that's the worst thing you can do to a character, is make them unnecessary. She could be necessary in another thing. She's not necessary in Luke's trajectory, in his future. So, that ties in with Luke Skywalker's legacy. If Ahsoka trains Luke Skywalker, you've stripped Luke Skywalker of his complete legacy, going all the way back to the original trilogy with the Return of the Jedi. It's done. It's rendered ineffective. And people would say, "Oh, no, it's good enough that he redeemed his father and destroyed the Emperor by renouncing evil and shunning the Emperor. That's good enough, right?" It's like, not if there's future stories involving him, because he's earned the right. He's the hero. If anyone has the right to establish a new Jedi Order, it's Luke Skywalker. I think I'm going to be so bold to say this. These Star Wars channels that for a time I had respected, if they're fine with Ahsoka teaching Luke, if they think that's going to be the most amazing thing in the world, and that's going to be such a fan service, if they're fine with that, they're fine with effectively stripping Luke Skywalker of his legacy.